So guys, welcome to our channel once again. In today's video on our JAMB biology exam revision series, we are going to be solving 20 JAMB repeated questions here on the topic evidence of evolution. So guys, be sure to stay to the end of this video, as this will help you a lot to prepare well for your JAMB exams this year. So also try pausing the video at any point to try out to see if you can answer the questions before we provide the answer that follows. So guys, let's start with the first question here. The question says, the most recently evolved structure in animals is the A, cilium, B, feather, C, scale, and D, hair. So guys, the answer to this question is feather. I would like to just give you a little explanation of this. In the evolutionary trend, we have organisms evolving from simple unicellular organisms, that's organisms made up of just one cell. Actually, they are evolving from the prokaryotic single-celled organisms. From there, they evolved into eukaryotic unicellular organisms or eukaryotic single-celled organisms. So from there, they started evolving down to eukaryotic multicellular organisms. So actually the animals here now, we have the invertebrates first, and then these invertebrates now evolved into the vertebrates. The first evolved vertebrates is the pisces, which are fishes, and then from there we now have the amphibians. So after the amphibians, the reptiles actually evolved from the amphibians. So remember that amphibians evolved from the pisces or fishes, then from the amphibians, reptiles came in. So from the reptiles, we now have mammals and birds. So actually mammals and birds evolved from the reptiles. So mammals evolved from certain reptiles by their possession of hairs and other unique features, whereas the birds also evolved from some other reptiles by possession of wings and involvement of feathers as well. So you can see that in the dinosaurs. So guys, I'm trying to explain this so that you can understand which of these is the most recently evolved and why we are choosing option B. So guys, if you look at the options here, cilium is usually associated with lower animals. Guys, feathers are associated with birds, which from the explanation I just gave you, you should know that it's the most recent. Scale here is mostly associated with reptiles. Most reptiles have scales. So hair as well, on the other hand, is usually or mostly associated with mammals. Actually, both mammals and birds actually evolved from the reptiles, but birds are actually of more recent evolution than mammals. So guys, that's the answer to this question, option B. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 2. The question says, which of the following is evidence of evolution? A, similarities in embryonic development. B, all of the above. C, homologous structure in different species. D, fossils of extinct organisms. So guys, like we know, all these options describe or show the evidence of evolution. So we're picking the option B, and that's all of the above, because of the options we have here show the evidence of evolution. So let's look at the next question, guys, and that's question number 3. The question says, Which of the following organs can be considered as vestigial in humans but functional in other mammals? A. Appendix. B. Rectum. C. Stomach. D. Liver. So guys, the answer to this question is A, and that's the appendix. So the appendix is actually considered a vestigial organ humans, whereas it's seen to be functional in other mammals. A vestigial organ is an organ that has lost all or most of its original function in the course of evolution. So in humans, the appendix does not serve any specifically known purpose, but in other mammals, it helps them to digest cellulose. So the answer to this question is option A. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 4. The question says, the evidence of evolution can be obtained from the following except A. Embryology, B. Anatomy, C. Fossil, D. History. So guys, the answer to this question is option D, and that's history. Evidence of evolution can be obtained from embryology, seeing that the organisms have the same embryonic origin, and it can be obtained anatomically, looking at features. It can also be obtained from fossil records. But guys, history is not an ideal evidence of evolution. So guys, the answer to this question is option D. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 5. The question says, the structure that is common in the embryos of mammals, amphibians, birds, fishes, and reptiles, and which is an evidence of their common ancestry, is the A. Chorion, B. Allantois, C. Eye, D. Gill slits. So guys, the answer to this question is option D, and that's gill slits. The gill slits are a structure that is common in the embryos of mammals, amphibians, birds, fishes, and reptiles. So this gill slits is actually an evidence of their common ancestry. The gill slits are rudimentary structures that are present in the embryos of all these animals, and they are indicative of their aquatic ancestry. So this shows that all these animals are actually having an aquatic ancestry. In the evolutionary trend, they actually started from being aquatic. So the answer to this question is gill slits, and that's option D. So guys, let's look at the next question, and that's question number 6. The question says, the least evidence in support of the theory of evolution is provided by the study of A. Geology, B. Embryology, C. Ecology, and D. Anatomy. So guys, out of the options here, the one that has least support to the theory of evolution is ecology, because ecology is just the study of organisms and how they interact with their environment. So this study actually has minimal support to the theory of evolution compared to the other studies we have in the options here. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 7. The question says, the evidence that supports the advancement of ferns over mosses is derived from A. Molecular records, B. Physiological records, C. Comparative anatomy, and D. Biochemical similarities. So guys, the answer to this question is comparative anatomy, and that's option C. Comparative anatomy actually has to do with the study of similarities and differences in the anatomy or structures of different species. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 8. The question says, an evidence of the relationship between living organisms and their extinct relatives can best be obtained from A. Embryology, B. Paleontology, C. Comparative physiology, D. Comparative anatomy. So guys, the answer to this question is paleontology, and this has to do with the study of life forms that existed in the previous geologic periods, and this is actually usually carried out by fossils. So it has to do with the study of forms that existed in the previous geologic periods by using fossil findings. So guys, let's look at the next question. That's question number 9. The question says, which of the following is the lowest category of classification? So we have here A. Species, B. Family, C. Genus, D. Class. So guys, we know about the hierarchy of classification, and that starts from the domain to the kingdom to the phylum to the class to order to family to genus, and then finally to species. So guys, you have to know this if you don't know it already by now, because this is one of your the primary things you should know in biology, and it has to do with the hierarchy of classification. So in the hierarchy of classification, just like I've listed here, the least is the species, and the species actually involves a group of organisms that can interbreed and produce offspring. So guys, they are the least and the closest in relationship. So let's look at the next question, guys, and that's question number 10. The question says, which of the following is an evolutionary trend commonly observed in organisms? A. Increased genetic diversity with populations. B. Decreased complexity over time. C. Decreased adaptation to the environment. D. Increased dependence on external resources. So guys, looking at the options given to us here, the correct one here is option A, and that's increased genetic diversity within populations. So as organisms keep evolving, we notice that there is diversity in their genetic makeup. So that's a kind of genetic diversity within the population. So genetic diversity actually increases with the evolutionary trend. So guys, let's look at the next question, and that's question number 11. We have here a diagram, and the question says the correct evolutionary sequence of the organisms represented is A, I, II, and IV. B, III, and IV. C, IV, III, and I. And then D, II, IV, and I. So guys, the answer to this question is option C, and that's IV, II, and I. And that's the correct sequence of the organisms represented. Remember, the earliest in the evolutionary trend is the fish here, and from the fish we have the amphibians, and then from the amphibians we have reptiles. Reptiles are not represented here, and then the aves and mammals actually come from the reptiles, so they are the last. So guys, the answer to this question is option C. So guys, let's look at the next question. And that's question number 12. The question says, which of the following fields of study may not yield strong evidence of evolution? A. Ecology. B. Fossil. C. Genetics. D. Histology. So guys, the answer to this question is option D, and that's histology. Actually, the histology has to do with the microscopic study of tissues, and that does not actually yield strong evidence of evolution, as we don't get to derive enough information to support evolution by just studying tissues in organisms microscopically. So guys, the next question we are going to consider is question number 13, and it says the similarity among organisms belonging to the same group will be least within each: A. Kingdom, B. Species, order, D. Family. So guys, remember that this has to do with hierarchy of classification, and if we look at this, the list of the hierarchy here will actually have common features or similarities more, and then the highest of the hierarchy will actually have the least similarity. So looking at this here, we know that from the highest to the least here, we have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, and then species. So guys, looking at this here, we know that kingdom is the highest of the hierarchy here, and as such should have the least similarity. So option A is the answer to this question. Let's look at the next question, guys, and that's question number 14. It says, from evolutionary standpoint, the older a fossil-bearing rock is, the more likely it is to contain A. Invertebrates as opposed to vertebrates, B. Angiosperms as opposed to algae, C. Aves as opposed to amphibians, and D. Vertebrates as opposed to invertebrates. So guys, the answer to this question is option A, and that's invertebrates as opposed to vertebrates. Actually, invertebrates gave rise to the vertebrates in the evolutionary scale. So if the fossils are older, then they should contain invertebrates rather than the vertebrates. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 15. The question says, an evidence of a common ancestry for fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals is the A. Position of scales by fishes and reptiles, B. Presence of gill clefts in vertebrate embryos, C. Cold-bloodedness of fishes, amphibians, and reptiles, D. Position of wings by birds and bats. So guys, the answer to this question is option B, and that's presence of gill clefts in vertebrate embryos. So that's the evidence of ancestry for fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. All these possess gill clefts in their embryos. So let's look at the next question, and that's question number 16. The question says, which of the following organs can be considered vestigial in humans but functional in other mammals? So guys, we've already answered the question here, and we've answered this question previously, and the answer is appendix, and that's option D here. So guys, let's look at the next question. That's question number 17. It says, the flippers of a whale and the fins of a fish are examples of A. Divergent evolution, B. Coevolution, C. Convergent evolution, and D. Continuous variation. So guys, the answer to this question is option C, and that's convergent evolution. So guys, the flippers of a whale and the fins of a fish are examples of convergent evolution. Actually, convergent evolution is a process in which organisms which are not closely related independently evolve similar traits as a result of having to adapt to similar environments or ecological niches. So, just like the whale that is a mammal and fishes, which are pieces, the flippers of a whale is similar to the fins of a fish. And since a whale is a mammal, it's having it's not closely related to the fishes, but yet they are having a similar trait, and this is as a result of the fact that they are both living in the same environment, and that's the water. So guys, let's look at the next question. That's question number 18. It says adaptive radiation is as illustrated by the variety of forms in insects can be regarded as a case of rapid population growth, b behavioral modification, c a physiological process, d and evidence of evolution. So guys, the answer to this question is option D. Adaptive radiation, as illustrated by the variety of forms of insects, can be regarded as an evidence of evolution. So guys, let's look at the next question. That's question number 19. The question says, in evolution, analogous structures are significant because they show A, physiological diversity, b functional diversity, c structural diversity, d genetic diversity. So guys, the answer to this question is option B, and that's functional diversity. In evolution, analogous structures are significant because they show a functional diversity. So let's look at the next question, and which is the last question. That's question number 20, guys. The question says the anatomical evidence usually used in support of the evolutionary relationship among whales, humans, birds, and dogs is the possession of A, thick skin, B, tail, C, epidermal structure, D, pentadactyl limb. So guys, the answer to this question is option D, and that's pentadactyl limb. That's a limb with 5 digits, and it is found in whales, humans, birds, and dogs. And this is a feature that is used to support the evolutionary relationship among these organisms. So guys, let's call it an end to this video. If you enjoyed this lesson, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're not yet a subscriber. Also, be sure to share this video with your friends to enable us reach out to more people. If you have any question regarding this video, please you can drop your question on the comment section below, and we'll ensure to give you a response. Thank you for watching this video.